Bitcoin is causing more change in the world at a more rapid rate than our brains are able to keep up. You know,
Hmm.
I think most of us are carrying this locomotive thing, and we're trying to think of it in terms of horse, and it's simply not convertible. You know, the locomotive solves problems that you can't even conceptualize yet. You know, I mean, most people, and they did. They looked at the train and said that, you know, whatever, because why would I need to go to another country? Why would I need to travel, you know, 40 miles? You know,
Right.
like why would I need to do that? You know, the train solved problems that were not even problems in the horse standard, because
Hmm.
the horse standard technologically was so ancient that those problems didn't exist. You know, like the majority of businesses today solve problems that did not exist at the time of the Roman Empire. And in the same way, I think people look at Bitcoin and they're like, yeah, but what problems does it solve? And you know, I think the majority of the value of Bitcoin becomes obvious to someone when they're thinking from the future, looking back instead of looking backwards, trying to overlay it on the future. And so
Mm.
that's why I always try to approach Bitcoin from that first principles perspective and explain that Bitcoin is that paradigm shift. And because it's that
Mm.
paradigm shift, that's why it's becoming valuable, not just because it's the new hot thing, you know, not just because it's the new trend. Like this is much more than a fad. This is much more
Mm.
than something you buy to get rich. But then, of
Mm.
course, the irony in that is that once you understand it, then you buy it to get rich. And ironically, the people you've probably seen the meme, Robert. I know probably a lot of people watching have, but it's like the bell curve
Hmm.
of, you know, intelligence or whatever. Or on one end you have people that are like, Bitcoin's going to go up, and on the other end you have people like Bitcoin's going to go up, and in the middle you have everyone that's like, it can't work for X, Y, or Z reason.
Yeah.
And I think what even that meme miss is that the people on the one end are much more bullish than the people on the other end. You know, someone that doesn't understand Bitcoin but is bullish Bitcoin will say Bitcoin could go to $1 million. It could go to 100,000. Maybe even someday it could go to $5 million. But I think someone on the other end of the spectrum is like, yeah, Bitcoin's going to hundreds of millions, billions, or more a coin
Hmm.
in a correct time horizon, of course. And it's just funny to me. It's like the Dunning-Kruger effect, um, on steroids to a certain degree. And yet, you know, with everything else with the Dunning-Kruger effect, it's like you have the spike up where they're absurdly optimistic, then they, you know, flatten out and they become more realistic. But the funny thing with Bitcoin is that it's kind of like the Dunning-Kruger effect, but you become more optimistic the farther you go. I don't know. That's interesting thought
Mm.
experiment. Obviously, every person's different, but yeah, ultimately, at the end of the day, I think you're right. I think it's a paradigm shift. I think people look back and view it as before Bitcoin, after Bitcoin. Before Bitcoin, you had 140 different political currencies that you had to barter between in order to transact. And the
Mm.
political currency that was backed by the nation with the biggest gun
Hmm.
got to determine the value of all the other political currencies. That's what we've had for hundreds of years, thousands of years, if you include other things besides fiat currencies. Bitcoin's the first time that we don't have to barter between commodities or between fiat currencies in order to price in the innovations in society.
I think that's a great way to look at it. And I'm kind of like that. So you could say fiat currency or political money in general creates this system of partial barter in a way that
Mhm.
we had gold, which is the most politically neutral money historically, but obviously because it's physical, politics still play a big role, right? You can kill someone and take their gold or invade a country and take their gold.
I'm glad that you're taking the time to learn about Bitcoin, learn about Bitcoin's potential future value, both in terms of political currency units and on society as a whole. And I'm really glad that you're taking the effort to study and educate yourself about Bitcoin. However, I must make this message incredibly clear. If you are learning about Bitcoin, you must begin also learning about self-custody and taking possession of your own keys. This is really, really important. You can watch as many YouTube videos as you want talking about how Bitcoin is going to skyrocket in fiat price and how the number is going to go up. You can talk about that all you want. You can daydream about this kind of vertical spike action for Bitcoin. You can daydream about this all you want. But my encouragement to you is that this is not a meme. This is not something to be taken lightly. We can think that this is a good thing, and it is a good thing ultimately for Bitcoin's long-term adoption. But this is real. Okay, this really happens in countries. You know, it may not happen in your country for some time. It may happen in a stair-step fashion, but this is not a meme. This is not a joke. And so, therefore, you need to take self-custody really, really seriously. Okay. I work full time in self-custody solutions for people. I help people set up their multi-sig vaults. I help people set up their estate plans. I help people with a collaborative custody partnership and collaborative custody models. Okay. This is a chart of the amount of interest we have at the Bitcoin Advisor, the company I work at. Okay. This is not me personally. This is the whole company. We've been in business 7 years. Not a single client of ours has ever lost a single sat. Okay. We have a good number of clients, and this is our demand. My point in showing you this chart, my point in showing you this message right now is that it is increasingly urgent, increasingly important that you begin taking self-custody very seriously. I'm telling you, I'm on the inside of this all day, every day, 6 days a week, and demand for self-custody is skyrocketing. Okay. The kinds of clients we have, the number of clients we have, the conviction in the clients we have, it is only going up. Okay. And people are booking meetings with me weeks, okay, in advance. In some cases, over a month in advance. And we are in bear market. Okay. That chart, this chart right here is from October 2023. Okay. Bear, like incredible low interest globally in Bitcoin. And our demand is still skyrocketing. It's still spiking. And my encouragement is that if we have a bull run, if we have parabolic spikes such as this, where Bitcoin goes rapidly upwards in terms of price, if we have these periods of time, okay, transaction fees are going to spike. Okay, exchanges are going to halt withdrawals. Okay, people are going to panic. They're going to smash by any price. Okay, it's going to be increasingly difficult to have any time with people to help you in your self-custody setups. So first and foremost, whatever you do, whether you work with me at the Bitcoin Advisor, whether you go somewhere else, whether you figure it out on your own, whatever the case, please start figuring out self-custody. Hot wallets, cold wallets, hot wallets, cold wallets, single sig, multi-sig, whatever you do, just start figuring it out now, because I'm increasingly alarmed by the number of Bitcoiners that do not have self-custody. So please, if you have any Bitcoin self-custody, but especially if you have a large amount of Bitcoin in self-custody, please start taking this stuff seriously, because it's only going to be increasingly important in the future. And so if you'd like to work with me, if you'd like to hear my opinions, perspectives, and ideas on this topic, you can find me at the Bitcoin Advisor. This is precisely why I work at the Bitcoin Advisor, because I believe this is such an important topic here. Okay. You can find me there. You can have expert guidance on how to self-custody Bitcoin, to buy, secure, and store it properly for the long term. We can have tailored strategies for you, what your long-term vision is, both for yourself, your own individual future, your retirement, and for your future generations as well. Again, multi-sig vaults, estate plans, all these things for you. Okay. You can just book a free meeting with me here, and the link down below in the description. Again, the first consultation is completely free, where we can talk about your priorities and see if there's a value add both for you and for the Bitcoin Advisor as well. And again, our goal is to help you have generational wealth for you and your loved ones and your children without losing sleep. Okay. And that's why not only do you get a free initial consultation, but you have dozens and dozens of pages of education about multi-sig, self-custody, how to store your Bitcoin properly, things to avoid, things to pursue. Okay. Again, dozens and dozens of pages of free education for you to be learning about this increasingly important, increasingly urgent topic. Okay. And then you can learn further about the Bitcoin Advisor and why we provide much more value for half the cost of our competitors. You can learn about all this and more in that link in the description, where you can book a free consultation with me at the Bitcoin Advisor. So again, whatever you do, whether you work with me at the Bitcoin Advisor or you try to figure out on your own, please just start taking action now. Because in a couple of years, higher and higher net worth people are going to be entering the space and demanding self-custody. Okay, more and more companies, more and more charities, more and more pension funds, more and more churches, all of these things, all of these groups of people, all these entities are going to be coming into Bitcoin very quickly, and they'll be willing to pay the transaction fees. They'll be willing to pay whatever fiat price and get for their sats. They'll be willing to do the self-custody as fast as possible. And so my encouragement to you, again, I'm glad you're enjoying these videos. I really appreciate you subscribing and commenting, being a part of these videos, and increasing your Bitcoin education. But please, please, please do not stop at the end of this video. Immediately after you watch the end of this video, please start taking your self-custody seriously, whether that's with me at the Bitcoin Advisor, again, link in description, or it's on your own. Whatever the case, please just do it. Thank you.
That system of partial barter is a friction on the free market. So if you're using that analogy of the wheel, it's kind of like a jagged wheel, right? It's not perfectly circular. It's got, long linear parts on it. And so when you're trying to drive it over terrain, it's just not efficient. It's not effective. It creates a lot of bumps and and pain that wouldn't need to be there if you had a circular wheel. And it's funny too, you're talking about problems that we can't even conceive of. I think when automobiles were first invented, they called them horseless carriages, just attesting to our inability to understand how significant a technological innovation can be. Now, you're still thinking in the terms of the old frame, right? You're thinking about, oh, horses are what we use for locomotion. This is like a horseless carriage. And that's really what people are doing when they think about the Bitcoin price, is like you're thinking through the frame of dollars. as if the dollars will be the significant frame in the future. And I think is when you really get down the Bitcoin rabbit hole, you're like, oh, wait, we're not going to think in dollars anymore. It's going to be a new frame. Bitcoin is the new frame for looking at economic output and economic results, right?